What up, what up, what up, people? It's me again. It's L Teddy 27. And we're back for NFL Week 4. Our fantasy football must starts and sleepers. We got a nice tie this week. We got the double-sided bow tie this week. See what side it ends up on. I ain't even, like I tell y'all all the time, I ain't even really looking at it. I can't really see it when I do it. So, see how this one turns out this week. Anyway, so this week, we got bye weeks. It's certainly the start of the bye weeks. So, I know that you all may be looking for people to start in lieu of your number one option. So I definitely hope to give you some of those options this week. All of the sleepers this week, I told you all last week that I would try to give you all people to pick up off the waiver wire. So all of the sleepers this week are going to be waiver wire pickups. People who except for our quarterback, because most quarterbacks are already on someone's team because there's just not a lot of starting quarterbacks to choose from in most decent leagues. But all the tight end, the tight end, the running back, and the wide receiver, they all are waiver wire pickups. So make sure that you get that situated. All right, you pick them up if you can. In some good leagues, they may not be available, but don't say I ain't trying to tell you. All right, so let's get started with quarterbacks this week. Our starting quarterback, the first starting quarterback I'm going to give you, I'm going to mention this guy. You can pick up any offensive option on this team. Okay, I'm going to mention the quarterback as a must start. But any other offensive weapon on that team, you can start them, okay? Heck, you can pick the third string tight end off the team, and he might go off. You never know. But it's going to be Phillip Rivers of the Los Angeles. It doesn't even sound right saying Los Angeles Chargers. The San Diego Chargers, they will always be the San Diego Chargers. But Phillip Rivers of the Chargers versus Miami. They are at Miami. Listen, every week, any team playing against the Miami Dolphins, you start them. I'm just telling you. So that means that all of the offensive weapons out there in for the Chargers are available at your, they're at your beck and call. They will go off this week. But definitely Phillip Rivers must start. I actually also like Daniel Jones this week. Of the Giants versus Washington. Washington can't stop a nosebleed, okay? They cannot stop a nosebleed. So please go ahead and start Daniel Jones. He's been doing well for the Giants. So look for him to continue that. Our sleeper for quarterbacks this week is someone who has been great in fantasy in years past, but he hasn't really done a lot this year. So that's the only reason I have him as a sleeper, and that is going to be Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is home versus Kansas City. And while Kansas City's defense, I forgot to say that Daniel Jones is at home versus the Washington Redskins. But anyway, Matt Stafford is at home versus Kansas City. And what Kansas City's defense usually does is they do really well the first 2.5 quarters of the game. Somewhere around the middle of the third quarter, the bottom falls out and it becomes a track meet. And so the other team starts to light it up. Go back and look at the past 3 weeks. That's generally what happens. So look for that to happen again. Matt Stafford is at home. He's comfortable at home in the dome up in Detroit. And so go ahead and Matt Stafford will be a definitely good pick. So I just have him as a sleeper, even though he's been great in fantasy in years past. All right. Let me get my tight ends out of the way, and then we'll get to the big boys, the wide receivers, and the running backs. So my tight ends for this week, two staples. If you don't and you know, tight ends, there's not a whole lot of tight ends to choose from in most times. So these two guys that are must starts are, you know, you were going to start them anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and get them out of the way. We got Delaney Walker of the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be at Atlanta, and Eric Ebron of the Colts, and he's going to be at home against Oakland. Y'all know Oakland can't stop a nosebleed either. Delaney Walker is always a solid start for any tight end. So those two are definite must starts. My sleeper is actually more of a must start than the two people who I just named. I'm only listing him as a sleeper because I told you my sleepers will be waiver wire pickups. Will Dissly of Seattle Seahawks is at Arizona. I told y'all last week, Arizona is horrible against opposing tight ends. You want to start Will Dissly. If you are doing daily fantasy football, he will be real cheap. You'll find him you might have to scroll up a few pages before you find Will Dissly. But Will Dissly, tight end, expect him to get off today versus Arizona. He's going to be at Arizona for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, so let's go with our running backs. For our running backs this week, first we'll start off with Chris Carson. In the same vein of Will Dissly being great against Arizona, the middle of the defense for Arizona is awful. It's atrocious, okay? They might could start me at linebacker or defensive end. I mean, that front seven for Arizona is just not good at all. So, you want to start Chris Carson for the Seahawks at Arizona, okay? Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. I like Derrick Henry in the Dome versus Atlanta. They're at Atlanta. I like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, quiet as his kept, has been putting up pretty decent numbers in fantasy this year. So I like him. And I also like Kerryon Johnson of the Detroit Lions, and they are at home versus Kansas City. I told you all, it may not start off looking like those Lions offensive weapons will do anything, but check out what starts to happen around the middle of the third quarter and see how things start to turn around. I'm just telling you, watch the trends. Our sleeper for this week, a waiver wire pickup, and you should have already picked him up if you haven't already, is going to be Wayne Gallman of the Giants, with Saquon Barkley being out yet again, and he seems like one of those players that were great in college, but they get to the NFL and then they're made out of paper where they can't stay healthy. You know, they're not made out of bones, they're made out of paper. And so he seems like one of these people that are going to have chronic injuries. So you definitely want to handcuff Wayne Gallman out there for the Giants if you have Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's proven at this point that he's not going to stay healthy. So Wayne Gallman, I figure him to do well against Washington. You know Washington, we already said they can't stop a nosebleed. So he's going to be at home against Washington. He'll do well. For our receivers this week, we have Tyrell Williams of the Oakland Raiders, and they are at Indianapolis against the Colts. So, I think that the Raiders offensively are starting to come into their stride. I like what Tyrell Williams is doing out there. I like him as a receiving option for Carr. So I figure him to do well against the Colts secondary, which isn't all that great. Of course, Kyler Murray is doing great things as a rookie quarterback. And so he's getting more and more in tune with Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. So Christian Kirk is my must start this week. That secondary out there in Seattle is not as good as they were when they were the Legion of Boom or Doom, whatever they were back in the day when Richard Sherman was out there. But they're not that anymore. Anyway, So start Christian Kirk. And then I like Will Fuller of the Texans. And they are going to be home against the Panthers. Now, I figured DeAndre Hopkins to be double teamed and triple teamed. So which would open up, which would have Will Fuller open. And I figured Deshaun Watson to, to expose that defensive matchup there that Will Fuller will be having today. And my sleeper for the wide receivers this week is going to be Terry McLaurin of the Washington Redskins. He's a rookie wide receiver. He's a waiver wire pickup. You want to pick him up. He has been each week getting better and better. I like him. And the matchup he has against the New York Giants this week. So go ahead, if you can. He's going to be our sleeper for the week. Pick up Terry McLaurin out there for the Redskins, and they are going to be at the New York Giants. Now, our favorite segment of this weekly video is El Teddy 27's Fantasies. And so these are the people who you want to go and do a quick Google image search on, put their names, and then you put and I'll type their name, I'll write their names on my little whiteboard here. You put their names in and you put shirtless, and then you get your whole life. So our first play, and this week I said, you know what, people have told me that I am biased because I like wide receivers and things like that. So they say I always have a wide receiver. So I did not choose a wide receiver this week, okay? I'm not biased. So our first person is a defensive end. He actually has a girl name. Or what is traditionally a girl name. So our first fantasy of the week is going to be Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is a defensive end for the Minnesota Vikings. Go look him up and get the entirety of your life. Get your whole life off of Danielle Hunter, who is a nice piece of eye candy. Nice piece of eye candy. Then, my next fantasy of this week, he's not that cute in the face. But let me tell you something. That body ain't nothing to play around with. Okay? Not that cute in the face. I mean, he's one of those paper bag, the ones where you got to put a paper bag over their heads. Or what we used to call them a double bagger, meaning you got to put two paper bags on their head, because if the first paper bag come off, at least you got the second paper bag to make sure you still don't see them. Anyway, it's a tight end out there for the Browns. It's David Njoku. Now, David Njoku, that body from the neck down is a sickening piece of dark chocolate. Oh, Lord, chiseled out of granite. Go look up David Njoku, tight end for the Browns. Ooh, nice piece of dark chocolate from the neck. Now, I'm just fair warning, don't look from the neck up. Just telling you what I know. And that is our week 4 fantasy review. These are our must starts and sleepers of week 4 for the NFL. Hopefully, if you do a daily fantasy or you have a league where y'all play for money, hopefully I get you a few couple coins. Drop me, 10%, I'm just joking. Maybe not. Anyway, I'll catch y'all back here next week for more of our fantasy football must starts and sleepers and our fantasies that we will be having each week. This has been so much fun so far, and I've gotten some really good comments from people who watch and have used my picks. So y'all keep watching. We'll be back next week. I'm out.